Welcome back, football fans, to another episode of Gridiron Legends. Today we're going to look at another 7 members of the Hall of Fame that were inducted in the 1965 class. Stick around and level up your football IQ as we delve into the rich history of pro football. Okay, our first Gridiron Legend of the class of 1965 is Guy Chamberlain, inducted as a head coach and an end. Played 9 seasons in the league. His coaching record was 58, 16, and 7. Guy Chamberlain played and coached in the earliest years of the National Football League, when the only meaningful statistic kept was the team's win-loss record. Winning was a category in which Chamberlain excelled. Of those coaches with 50 or more victories, Guy's 58, 16, and 7 record and .759 winning percentage ranks among the best. In his six coaching seasons, 5 of which were spent as a player coach, Chamberlain also won 4 NFL championships for the Canton Bulldogs in 1922 and 1923, the Cleveland Bulldogs in 24, and the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets in 1926. Although Chamberlain's high school in Blue Springs, Nebraska was not big enough to field a football team, he became a 2-time All-America at the University of Nebraska. Jim Thorpe, who had always been Chamberlain's idol, lured Guy into pro football with the pre-NFL Canton Bulldogs in 1919. Chamberlain was one of the finest ends of his time. When George Halas began lining up players for his Decatur Staley's team in 1920, Chamberlain was his prime recruit. He was big, tall, and fast, excellent on both offense and defense, and a 60-minute player. After 2 seasons with Halas and the Staleys, Chamberlain came back to Canton as a player coach for the Bulldogs. Thorpe was no longer with the team, but Chamberlain assembled one of the powerhouse 11s of the 1920s. Canton, with the undefeated seasons in both 1922 and 23, became the NFL's first 2-time champion. The Bulldogs were sold in 1924 to a Cleveland promoter who added several Bulldogs players to his Cleveland team. Chamberlain led the rebuilt Cleveland team to the NFL championship. In 1925, Chamberlain joined the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, and a year later won another NFL title with a 14-1-2 record. Guy concluded his player-only career with the 1927 Chicago Cardinals and as a coach only in 1928 with the Chicago Cardinals. So our first Gridiron Legend, somebody that I had not heard of before, and for good reason. He played way back when they only kept track of wins and losses. So pretty interesting about that. And the fact that he ranks up among the best with his win-loss winning percentage of .759 is pretty cool. And, again, mixed in with George Halas and the Bears somewhere in there. Jim Thorpe, who was a great player. He won 4 NFL titles in 6 years. So really good coach. So that was Gridiron Legend number 1. Let's get on to Gridiron Legend number 2. Okay, our second Gridiron Legend of the day is John Driscoll. He's inducted as a running back and quarterback. He was playing in the league for 11 seasons. He had 6 All-NFL selections, and his personal high, 27 points in 1 game. The term franchise player is used to describe a star who, by the excellence of his play on the field, plays a major role in his team's success, or in some cases, its very existence. John "Patty" Driscoll, who excelled as a quarterback and halfback, proved himself to be a franchise player of the rarest kind. The Chicago Cardinals, a charter member of the National Football League, were challenged in the Windy City by another league team, the Tigers. The Cardinals hired Driscoll for the then pricey sum of $300 a game in an effort to bolster the team's performance on the field and in the box office. In a midseason game against the Tigers, Driscoll scored the game's only touchdown to lead the Cardinals to a 6-0 victory, giving them bragging rights as Chicago's best. The Tigers folded following the 1920 season. Driscoll, at just 5'11" and 160 pounds, was not very big, but size didn't prevent him from excelling on both offense and defense, and he was particularly skilled in punting and drop kicking. After the Bears moved to Chicago in 1921, they quickly became the Cardinals' arch rivals. Driscoll seemed always to be at his peak when the two teams played. In 1922, he scored all the points on drop-kicked field goals as the Cardinals beat the Bears 6-0 and 9-0. When the famed Red Grange made his pro debut against the Cardinals in 1925, Driscoll angered the large crowd by continually punting away from the galloping ghost. I decided if one of us was going to look bad, it wasn't going to be me. Punting to Grange is like grooving a pitch to Babe Ruth, he explained. The possibility that Driscoll might defect to a new league, being formed in 1926, prompted his trade to the Bears, where he continued to subdue the opposition single-handed through the remainder of his career that ended following the 1929 season. So they've got a few additional stats here. He had a total of 18 passing touchdowns and 25 rushing touchdowns. He caught 4 touchdowns. He returned one punt for a touchdown, and he returned 1 fumble for a touchdown. So pretty cool there. Another guy that I had no idea about, the fact that he was instrumental in getting a team in Chicago and, handling the opposition, either the Tigers or the Bears, I guess. Really cool to learn about there. And again, it's the Bears connection, right? Even though he was on the opposite team for quite a while and held Red Grange in check, by the end, he was traded to the Bears. So pretty cool. Really interesting to learn about this guy. Hope you enjoyed it. And now we're going to Gridiron Legend number 3. Okay, our third Gridiron Legend of the day is Dan Fortmann, inducted as a guard. He played 8 seasons in the NFL, and he was a first or second team All-NFL selection all 8 seasons. Legend has it that George Halas, the owner-founder of the Chicago Bears, selected Colgate guard Danny Fortmann as his team's 9th and final pick in the 1936 NFL Draft because he liked his name. It was the league's first draft and not nearly as sophisticated as today's version. And on the surface, it appeared at first that Halas had made a mistake. At 6 feet and weighing 210 pounds, Fortmann, who was just 19 years old when he was drafted, appeared to be too small for line play in the NFL. A Phi Beta Kappa scholar, he definitely didn't possess the usual credentials for someone who was supposed to knock down enemy ball carriers or lead the interference. By the time his rookie season started, Danny had turned 20, but was still the youngest starter in the NFL. He had determination and talent, however, and soon was excelling as a little man in a big man's game. On offense, he called signals for the linemen and was a battering ram blocker. On defense, he was a genius at diagnosing enemy plays and a deadly tackler. For 7 seasons, Fortmann and Chicago's number 1 pick in the historic 36 draft, tackle Joe Stidhar, were a formidable combination on the left side of the powerful Bears line. The Bears were a dominant team during Fortmann's career. From 36 to 43, the Monsters of Midway won 3 NFL championships and took division titles on 2 other occasions. And Fortmann was the top man in his position in pro football. He earned first or second team All-NFL honors all 8 years of his career. Typical of his hard work and desire to excel, Fortmann continued his education while playing for the Bears and graduated in 1940 from the University of Chicago Medical School. So here we go, another guy that I haven't heard of, selected by the Chicago Bears and George Halas, and seemingly right out of high school, right? He's 19 years old, playing on the line in the NFL. 6 feet, 210 pounds, didn't seem like he was going to be successful, but really turned it around and had a great career. I mean, first or second team All-NFL honors all 8 years of your career. That is awesome. Pretty cool. He was on the Monsters of Midway, where Chicago won 3 NFL championships and 2 more division titles. Awesome, awesome information. Just love learning about these guys from the past. Okay, our 4th Gridiron Legend of the day is Otto Graham. He was inducted as a quarterback in the class of 1965. He played for 10 seasons in the NFL. He was all-league 9 out of the 10 years. He passed for 23,584 yards, scored 44 rushing touchdowns, and a total of 174 touchdowns. When Paul Brown began organizing the Cleveland Browns team to play in the new All-America Football Conference, the first player he signed was Otto Graham, a tailback from Northwestern University. Brown eyed Graham as the perfect quarterback for his new pro team. Graham planned to concentrate on basketball at Northwestern. He was discovered playing intramural football as a freshman, and although he became a fine passer in 3 varsity seasons, he had no experience in the T formation. Brown never wavered on his decision. Otto has the basic requirements of a T quarterback: poise, ball handling, and distinct qualities of leadership. It turned out the coach was right. Once Graham joined the Browns, he not only quickly mastered the mechanics of the tee, but he became the heart of the dynamic football machine. With Graham at the controls, the Browns won 4 straight AAFC titles and compiled an awesome 52-4-3 record. Still, pro football experts theorized Otto and the Browns would get their comeuppance once they faced the NFL in 1950, but both the quarterback and the team proved more than equal to the occasion. In the Browns' 30-28 victory over the Los Angeles Rams in the 1950 NFL Championship game, Graham threw 4 touchdown passes. His finest title game performance came 4 years later when he scored 3 touchdowns and threw for a trio of scores in a 56-10 lacing of Detroit. Graham retired after that game, but responded to Paul Brown's SOS early in 1955. In the final game of his career, the NFL Championship against the Los Angeles Rams, he ran for 2 touchdowns and passed for 2 more in a 38-14 victory. For the 9th time in 10 seasons, Otto was named first-team All-League quarterback. While Graham was guiding the Browns, Cleveland played in 10 straight title games and had 4 AAFC and 3 NFL championships. All right, so here is our 4th Gridiron Legend of the day, and this is a guy that I've heard about and I've kind of researched a little bit. Otto Graham. I think his nickname was Automatic Otto. And just because they played in 10 straight title games. 10 straight title games. Something we'll never see again. I think the Bills played in 4 straight championship games. I know they lost them all, but it was 4 straight, which even the great Patriots teams or Steelers and 49er teams, or even the Dallas Cowboys, none of those teams played in 4 straight. And this guy played in 10 straight. That's just incredible. So we look at some of his career stats here. 23,584 passing yards for a 10-year career. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but again, completely different style of play back then. He had 135 interceptions, 174 touchdowns. So the interception to touchdown ratio is a little skewed as well. His rating overall was 86.6. The numbers, by all accounts, are kind of pedestrian, but his play on the field really excelled and transformed into 10 straight championship appearances. Awesome things. I love learning about these guys. This guy, like I said, I did know a little bit about, but clearly one of the best all-time quarterbacks in the NFL. That is Gridiron Legend number 4. Let's get on to our next one. Okay, our next Gridiron Legend of the day is Sid Luckman, inducted as a running back and a quarterback. He played 12 seasons in the NFL. He was an all-NFL selection 5 times. He passed for 14,686 yards and scored 137 touchdowns. Sid Luckman, in his 12 seasons with the Chicago Bears, became the first successful T-formation quarterback. One game in the Luckman's second season, the 1940 NFL title game, which saw the Bears defeat the Washington Redskins 73-0, showcased the explosive possibilities of the T-attack. Almost immediately, many other pro teams began to adopt the new formation. Bears owner and coach George Halas first presented Sid with a Bears T-formation playbook when he was practicing for the College All-Star Game in 1939. Astonished and somewhat alarmed by the complexities of the new system, Sid was not an instant success. He fumbled frequently, had trouble with handoffs, and in general flunked his first T-test. Halas shifted Luckman to halfback for a while before making another effort which, on a second try, paid dividends. Not all teams had the success with the T formation that the Bears enjoyed. Chicago won 4 NFL championships, just missed a 5th, and Luckman was a major reason for the success. The crafty quarterback was named first or second team All-League from 1940 through 1948 and won the NFL's Most Valuable Player honors in 1943. Although Sid may be the best remembered for the 73-0 victory of the Redskins, because the Bears went ahead so early in the game, he actually had to pass only 6 times, completing 4 for 102 yards and a touchdown. Apparently, just the threat of Luckman and the T was enough to keep defenses off balance. Luckman had many more outstanding games, but 2, both in 1943, stand out above the rest. On November 14th, Sid Luckman Day at the Polo Grounds, he passed for a record-tying 7 touchdowns and a 56-7 win over the New York Giants. Later that year, in the championship game against the Redskins, he threw for 276 yards and 5 touchdowns in a 41-21 triumph. So here we are, another gridiron legend that I did kind of hear about. Didn't do a whole lot of research on, but I know the name. 4 NFL championships, just barely missing out on a 5th. In the NFL Most Valuable Player honors in 1943. First or second team All-League from 1940 all the way through 1948. Really awesome accomplishments there. Again, the stats don't really bear out what he did on the field, but 14,686 passing yards. He had a 51% completion percentage, 137 touchdowns to 132 interceptions. So again, that ratio is really skewed. 75.0 rating. So really, really cool to hear about this guy and some of the things he did. And interesting to note, too, that he wasn't an instant success in the T-attack. They actually had to move him to halfback before they came back to him to try again, and it started to click for him. So really, really cool. Glad you could join me for that one. Let's get on to our next one. Okay, our 6th gridiron legend of the day, Steve Van Buren. Inducted as a running back and quarterback in the class of 1965. Played 8 seasons in the NFL. He was an all-NFL selection 6 times. Scored 464 points. He had 523 yards receiving and 5,860 yards rushing. Steve Van Buren answered to a lot of names during his 8-year career in the National Football League. Wham Bam, Supersonic Steve, Blockbuster, and several more. Translated, they all meant that he was an exceptional football player. To be sure, Steve's pro career was distinctive. He surpassed 1,000 yards rushing twice, won 4 NFL rushing titles, and a rare triple crown in 1945 when he led in rushing, scoring, and kickoff returns. He was a first-team All-NFL selection each of his first 6 seasons, and Van Buren lined up as a halfback but played more like a fullback as the battering ram of a powerful Eagles squad that dominated the NFL in the late 40s. Philadelphia had never finished above 4th place until Steve came on the scene in 1944. That year they finished 2nd and were runners-up 2 more years, won 3 straight divisional titles, and the NFL title in 1948 and 49. Van Buren provided the offensive punch in both championship victories. In 1949 title game against the Los Angeles Rams, Steve carried 31 times for a record 196 yards as the Eagles won 14-0. A year earlier, Van Buren rushed for 98 yards and scored the game's only touchdown in the Eagles' 7-0 title win over the Chicago Cardinals. Born in Honduras, Van Buren was orphaned when he was very young and sent to New Orleans to live with his grandparents. He failed to make the high school football team as a 125-pound high school sophomore, but as a senior, he played well enough to win a scholarship to LSU. In his senior season, Van Buren rushed for 832 yards. Encouraged by LSU coach Bernie Moore, the Eagles selected him as their top pick in the draft. It was a break for Van Buren and for the Eagles, possibly their most fortunate ever. So another gridiron legend that I've heard the name of, didn't really know much about him, and just interesting to learn about his career. He ran for 1,000 yards twice in his career. He won 4 NFL rushing titles. He won the Triple Crown, leading the league in rushing, scoring, and kickoff returns. So that was really cool as well. Leading the team to a couple championships. You can't really ask much more than that from a player. So there you go. Steve Van Buren, another gridiron legend. So cool to learn about these guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's move on to our last gridiron legend of the day. Okay, gridiron legend number 7 and our last of the day is Bob Waterfield. Inducted as a quarterback in the class of 1965. Played 8 seasons in the NFL. He had 11,849 passing yards, 20 interceptions, 97 passing touchdowns, and a total of 573 career points. Now, in the 1945 NFL Championship game, Bob Waterfield threw 37 and 44-yard touchdown passes to lead the Cleveland Rams to a 15-14 victory over the Washington Redskins. That capped the season in which he was a unanimous All-NFL choice and became the first rookie ever to win the league's Most Valuable Player award. Early in 1946, the Rams moved to Los Angeles. As the Rams quarterback, later splitting time with Norm Van Brocklin, Waterfield took the team to 3 straight title games from 1949 to 1951. The Rams won it all in 1951 with a 24-17 win over the Cleveland Browns in the title game. As a passer, Waterfield was known for his ability to throw deep. He led the National Football League in passing in 1946 and 51, finishing with career totals of 814 completions, 11,849 yards, and 97 touchdown passes. He was named first or second team All-NFL 5 times. One of the game's most versatile players, he was also known as an ace defensive back for his first 4 seasons, a top punter with a 42.4-yard average, and a deadly place kicker. In 8 seasons, he totaled 573 points on 13 touchdowns, 315 PATs, and 60 field goals. For the next 7 seasons, the Rams were pro football's most feared offensive team, and Waterfield was the brilliant field general and precision passer who put points on the scoreboard. Always calm against even the greatest odds, he often led his team to come from behind victories. In one 1948 game, the Rams fell behind eventual league champion Philadelphia 28-0. Waterfield rallied his team to a tie on 4 late touchdown passes. Waterfield proved to be a determined competitor in the pros, and in the 1950 divisional playoff, although he was unable to practice all week because of the flu, he came off the bench and threw 3 touchdown passes in a 24-14 win over the Chicago Bears. So another great NFL player that I kind of heard about a little bit, but didn't really know much about. And very interesting to learn that he was a really good quarterback, but where he really excelled was in the kicking game, right? I mean, 315 PATs and 60 field goals provided the bulk of his 573 career points, which is pretty interesting. I thought he was more of just a quarterback. I mean, it says they inducted him as a quarterback, but the majority of his success came as a kicker. So really interesting. 11,849 career passing yards, a 50.3 completion percentage for his career, 61.6 rating. He had 97 passing touchdowns to 128 interceptions. So again, that ratio is the wrong way there. But like I said, he's more notable his kicking game. So another great player from the past. Really enjoyed learning about this guy, and I hope you did too. Okay, thanks for joining me for today's trip into the past to learn about the 1965 class of Hall of Famers. Now, if you've missed any of the videos for the 1963 or 64 classes, you can check them out here, or here, or here, or here, I don't know, somewhere. Check them out anyways, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.